Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Opportunities and Challenges of In-the-Moment Feedback Using Location and Beacon Triggering. I'm Joe Ridholm, editor of Quirk's Marketing Research Review, and before we get started, just a few quick notes. First of all, you'll receive an email with a link to the recording of this event approximately 24 to 36 hours after we're through here today. And then secondly, there will be time for questions after the presentation, so feel free to submit questions as we go along, and the presenters will do their best to answer as many as we have time for. And then any questions that we don't get to today will be addressed offline after we're through. Our hosts today are Miguel Ramos and Holly DeMuro. Miguel is Mobile Practice Lead at Confirmit, and Holly DeMuro is Product Marketing Manager at Confirmit. And with that, I will hand things over to Miguel. Take it away, Miguel.
Thanks, Joe. Well, hello, everyone. I want to thank you for being there, listening to this webinar, this presentation. My name is Miguel Ramos, and I'm the subject matter expert for mobile solutions at Confirmit. And today, we're going to talk about the opportunities and challenges of in-the-moment feedback. So our plan, myself and Holly DeMuro, is to go through over the next 50 minutes to talk about the speed of change in the mobile ecosystem, and in particular, we will talk about the benefit of using location-based technologies to trigger in-the-moment research activities. During this webinar, we will cover the following topics: the emergence of the connected respondent, how location is the contextual key to unlock in-the-moment feedback. We will go through some current uses of location in mobile apps, and then we'll go into detail into a description and comparison for location-based technologies, and I will show two technologies and two scenarios using beacon and GPS triggering. And we will finish with some recommendations to address privacy concerns with location-based studies. So to start with, Holly DeMuro, the Product Marketing Manager at Confirmit, is going to talk about the emergence of the connected respondent.
Thanks so much, Miguel. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining the webinar today. So this first slide actually refers to the emergence of the connected respondent, but I think that's a little bit of an understatement. In all honesty, I think we should really be calling it the explosion of the connected respondent. Just about everybody in the universe is now using some sort of digital media device to connect 24/7. We've got our cell phones and our tablets, and we're always on. And as proof, you can actually see statistically that now mobile devices have actually, as of 2014, completely outstripped desktop computers in usage in the United States. But it's even more than that, because it's not just the United States, it's actually across the world. Not only are we doing it here, but if you look at the numbers in Europe, for example, more than half of all digital media interaction is actually on a mobile device. So it's really taken over as something absolutely monstrous. And what's more than that is that it's only going to get bigger. Right now, there's some expectations that by 2019, 3.5 billion people will be using smartphones. By 2017, there's going to be over 10 million apps. Sometimes it feels like there already are 10 million apps, but it's only going to get bigger and bigger. And companies are looking to leverage this. They're building more and more platforms. By 2017, it's expected that over $130 billion will have been invested in some type of mobile engagement. So clearly there's an opportunity here, right? But you might look at this and say, okay, great, so what does this all mean? Well, ultimately, this all means that we need to figure out where that opportunity is. So if we look at some current uses of what people are doing with their smartphone, what's happening with smartphones, a pattern starts to emerge. So we can see just some stats here. 77% of smartphone users are willing to share their location as long as they're getting some sort of value in return. 74% of adult smartphone users are getting information-based information from their phone, so that could be directions from their Google Maps or whatever the case is, but 74% are using it. 69% of people, when they're performing a Google search, are including just the specific location. So maybe they're looking for a hotel in a specific area or something like that. And 30% of smartphone users are actually using location in their social media in order to identify where they're posting from. And ultimately, it's going to get bigger than that. You know, they're expecting, again, some substantial growth in terms of mobile advertising over the next few years. So this is a pretty significant thing. But now you might be wondering, what exactly does it all mean, and how can you actually unlock the feedback potential that's involved in this location stuff? So I'm going to pass it back to Miguel, and he can give you the details on that.
Thanks, Holly. Mobile technology allows you to collect the location of the individual. This is the message, the precise location. But too much of that data, especially in isolation, does not have any meaning. Location data, and in particular for market research industry, needs to be combined with the panelist information and their feedback so that you can understand your panelist behaviors and emotions. So currently, mobile phones have location capabilities that can either trigger or collect the information or can trigger a message when they're in a specific location. In the case of surveys, locations has the potential to help you contextualize your insights. And my plan today is to run you through two of the technologies that can be used with the mobile phone for location triggering feedback. So the first one that I have prepared is AGPS, or Assisted GPS. What's AGPS? You're probably familiar with GPS. Well, AGPS, it's a technology which is part of your mobile phone. It makes use of GPS. Your mobile phone receivers have a GPS receiver, but at the same time, they have a GPS receiver. This means that your mobile network provider is currently providing you with the location of where your mobile phone is. It's making use of the cell phone towers. So your mobile phone operators, all the mobile phone operators currently make use of AGPS. And this is why and how your Google Maps, your Uber, your Facebooks are able to locate you, even if you're indoors. So with the standard GPS, why do they do this? Simply because standard GPS only works outdoors, and it would take a mobile phone sometimes between 5 and 10 minutes to locate their location, to locate the phone. But with assisted GPS, the data's coming through your data plan, your 3G, and instantaneously is able to provide the mobile phone with location about where it is in relation to the cell phone tower, and also where the closest GPS satellite that it needs to scan. So it's able to get the location from GPS and the network very, very quickly. The other piece of technology that I'm going to describe is the Bluetooth. You're probably familiar with Bluetooth because you've seen it on speakers or headsets. And I'm going to be talking about beacons. Beacons make use of Bluetooth, and they're normally called BLE, or Bluetooth Low Energy Beacons. And they're becoming the factor standard for location-based services in airports, hotels, and retail environments. Most of smartphones today contain the appropriate hardware and software needed to leverage this location technology. Basically, the way it works, beacons are embedded within a physical location, and then as your respondent passes through the area where the beacon is installed, the beacon can interact with the mobile phone, allowing and triggering a message to trigger that message to start asking for feedback. And this is why you're able to get the contextual and base location, because you really know where the beacons are installed, the lat and the location of the beacons. But there's one thing to remember. Location trigger surveys always need an app. If you're currently using a panel, your online mobile web service can receive SMSs or emails, and they can be open on a mobile phone. And this is how you are sending invitations to your panelists that are open on the mobile phone. But if you want to make use of location-based triggering surveys, you always need to use an app, because the app is what connects to the mobile phone, and it talks to the AGPS receiver and the Bluetooth receiver, and that's how you're really making the connection between the beacons and the GPS satellites to the app. Okay? So what I'm now going to do is to pass it on to Holly, that is going to talk about some example on current uses of locations by mobile apps.
Thanks, Miguel. Yeah, we wanted to give you some examples. It can sometimes be a little confusing if you're not familiar with location-based triggering and beacon. And just to keep in mind, we are talking about two things here. So first, we're going to start out and talk about some location tracking things. And it's really exciting because ultimately location has really permeated every aspect of our life. If you just look at your own phone and just see the kinds of apps you've got, and more than likely you're probably like so many other people with your location tracking on, but it's permeated everything from lifestyle apps, like the first one is for Nike. They track how far you've run, and the weather, different social media apps, even the photography, the pictures you're taking on your phone with either iPhone or Android. If you're using either of their photo applications, they're tracking the location to tag the photo with. If you're taking any kind of transportation or maps, everything is basically doing some form of location tracking. Now, on the other side, we've also got some exciting uses for beacon as well. Now, remember what Miguel said, beacon is just a little bit more specific than the location tracking. So if we look over some of our examples here, we have, for example, the first is some really cool newspapers or magazines that have been offered. These are being created by a German company who's actually a manufacturer of beacon, and this is their Blue Beacon alerts or bulletins, and they're actually allowing access to free magazines and journals that talk about the beacon technology, no registration or anything required, by using their own beacon technology. So some other cool applications you'll see in a variety of different retail and food and beverage stores, like we've got an example here from McDonald's. All across Germany, actually, McDonald's has been using beacon in order to distribute coupons at the site of service, if you will. So somebody walks in, gets a coupon, and it helps to promote their sales. You've got some interesting applications as well for beacon in hotels. One hotel in particular called the Starwood hotels, they're actually using beacon now as their mobile room keys. So you don't have to worry about losing that card anymore that everybody has lost at some point in their lifetime. And even then, organizations or big companies like Macy's have put beacons in place now. And again, for the same kind of purpose as we had with McDonald's, where they're offering up coupons and promotions at the time when it's most appropriate for the customer. So with that, perhaps, Miguel, you can take over and give us a little bit more of a comparison between beacon and location to clarify the difference between those and how it applies.
Thank you, Holly. Holly has been showing some examples of apps using location, but the market research industry can make use of location trigger surveys by using, for example, a mobile panel app. These apps are normally connected to a panel, and the app becomes the extension of the panel, allowing the delivery of the mobile-optimized panel portal experience to all your respondents. A panel app will allow your respondents to receive push notifications. They are just like SMS, but the difference is the fact that it goes through the communication channel of the data network. So that means that they're free. And even if the app is not open, the push message will appear on the respondent's screen. So it's a great way to invite and to trigger an invite to complete feedback. But with a panel app, you can also trigger surveys based on locations. The locations can come either from a beacon or for a GPS location, which would be using AGPS. What does this mean? This means that with the GPS, with a GPS, the panel app will make use of the assisted GPS, and this means that it will work as indoors as well as outdoors. So an engagement can be based on an entry or on an exit of a specific location boundary. The only thing you need to do is to define the boundary, and the assisted GPS triggered surveys. The assisted GPS receiver on the mobile device will be talking to the app. Remember, you always need an app. And then the app knows that the respondent has enter or exit the specific location, and it will trigger an invite, similar to the push message that I have shown you, but it's actually done on location. There is no additional cost, obviously, because you only need to set up the location of all the different stores, for example, if you're doing it for a retail, and then as the respondent goes through the stores, then the surveys and the invites will be triggered. There is another option that you could also take, which is the triggering of a survey based on a sequence of locations entered. For example, imagine that you want to collect feedback from the panelists that have shopped at two very specific brands of supermarkets. So what you could do, you could configure the app to collect every time your respondent crosses the boundary of a specific supermarket, and when they go into the competitor supermarket, that's when you want to trigger the survey. So this is not the same as passive tracking. This is the same as storing the location of that, where every time, storing the information when every time your panelist has crossed a specific boundary, storing that information, and when a combination of those locations happen, then trigger a survey. So the possibilities are actually endless. So let's move on to the beacon technology. This is the Bluetooth technology. Location-based surveys using beacons make use of Bluetooth, and this is normally used for more precise triggering because the small beacon is placed either in a store display or a billboard, and the panel app is constantly monitoring your panelist location and listening to the beacon signal. When your panelist with the branded panel app is near the beacon, the panelist will receive an invite. This is similar to the location-based triggering based on GPS, but this is based on Bluetooth. This is a different technology, same outcome on the respondent. All the mobile manufacturers implement this technology nowadays, and on the slide you can see the minimum operating system that is needed to make sure that your panelist device can make use of this technology. But if you look at the operating systems and the brands, you will see that they're more than 1 or sometimes 2 years old. So I would say that the majority of the smartphones out there will are able to make use of this technology. It's ideal to be used indoors, and it has a range between, I would say, 50 and 70 meters. And remember, there is a cost associated to it. The cost reduces depending on the amount of beacons that you purchase. And the beacon makes use of Bluetooth technology. So this means that this technology is able to just pass basic information to the mobile, which is very basic, for example, similar to an SMS, 126 characters. So using this technology, multiple beacons can be associated to a survey or a combination of survey. But my recommendation here, and this is what I always tell all our Confirmit customers, first decide your scenario for your study. And then with your scenario, you will be able to assess what's the need, what's the precision that you need for the location. This will help you choose the right technology, if it's either beacon or GPS. Okay. Alternatively, you can contact us, and we can help you with your research scenario. So what I'm going to do now is to take you through two scenarios, and for this I have prepared two videos to show you how location-based studies will allow you to track your respondents' behavior and get real-time feedback. It will help you, as I've been mentioning, it will help you collect and analyze customer behavior data, such as the path to purchase, promotion, conversion rates, and more. Get in-the-moment feedback to drive improved customer experience and better service. And the value is that the data can be correlated to the specific location, and you can guarantee that the respondent has actually been to the location and seen the promotion if they are looking for a promotion, for example. So let's have a look at the first scenario. I have selected two scenarios, but the location-based triggering can be used for banks, hotels, airports, hospitals, retail, competitor stores. That's the combination I've been talking about earlier, or maybe professional sports grounds. For the first scenario that I have selected, it's a retail or a finance example. So let's imagine here we have Paul, which has popped into a bank. And as soon as he comes out of the local bank, then his mobile pops a message. So something has happened, he's been triggered a survey, and he goes through the survey. So let's have a look at what Paul is actually seeing on his screen. In this instance, a notification has popped up, and we can see that the notification has appeared because Paul has exited the branch. The app has detected that the phone is outside the perimeter boundary, and it now asks to participate in the survey. So Paul can either select OK, or he can cancel and complete the feedback at a later stage. He decides to press OK. So the app knows about Paul, and Paul receives a customized message and is inviting him to provide some feedback. The survey is short, and it's asking him for the reason for attending the branch. In this case, Paul has attended the branch to replace his card. As you can see, the survey is going to be very short. It's asking if he's satisfied with the outcome, yes, and on a scale from 1 to 5, where you're satisfied with the staff, is very satisfied. And then as a final question, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or colleague? And the option to provide some feedback in the form of text. So when Paul has visited the branch, by making use of the GPS technology on the panel app that he's carrying, he has received an in-the-moment message. It's very timely, and it's very valuable feedback about his experience and the branch. He doesn't have to go to recall mode. He's just experienced being in the branch. So what I'm going to do now is to take you to the other example, the second example that I have prepared, and to show you how you can use beacons. This is the other technology. This time we have John. And John is a panelist, and he has been sent on a task to perform today. He needs to go to his local shopping store and take some action. He needs to find a particular area within the store, and when he's near the area, then something is triggered on his phone. When he's on that specific area, or that specific display, he's triggered the message, so let's see what he's seeing. The same as with the GPS triggered survey, an invite has appeared, and we can see that he's got the opportunity to accept the notification or cancel it. The notification says, well done, and this is the interesting part. He decides to accept the invite, and he's first asked to do and to take a picture of the promotion. This kind of information is invaluable because you will have the visual information, the photographic evidence, as well as the GPS location that the panelist has actually gone to that location. So there he is, taking a picture of the promotion, and in the background we can capture the GPS location of the respondent. So we'll have the physical location and the visual information of the So let's carry on. Here we have a few questions of the survey. What's your favorite drink? Sparkling wine. What wine? Why is that? Well, because it's very refreshing. This is, as you can see, it's an example. John has completed the survey, and then he goes back to the main screen. Another great opportunity to bring digital capabilities, in this case to traditional in-store point-of-purchase displays, to measure in the moment and the engagement of all your panelists exactly as they're experiencing going through the specific area where you want to capture the feedback. So how about considering using your panelists for mystery shopping? This is another example. You can complement your mystery shopping studies with your panelists or even your customers or the employees of your clients. How? Well, to measure the quality of the service or to gather specific information about products and services. Remember, on the example, which we have seen that you can capture the GPS location of the respondents as they're completing the survey using the mobile phone, as well as an image, and answer all the questions that are part of the survey. And you know that they have been to the specific location because the survey has been triggered on the app. There are companies, there are chains that are currently using their employees to walk through each and every room across their hotel to gather key information about each room. Here's an example. Starwood Hotels is using their employees and their own app to walk through each and every of the 1,200 hotels to gather key information, things like type of fridge, the type of workspace in the room, whether the room has 1 or 2 beds, or whether if the room is near the ice machine or on a high floor or a low floor. This is valuable information for your clients. With location trigger apps, you can deliver a service to your customers and guarantee that your respondents, that can be your employees, your customers' employees, panelists, or customers, have been to the appropriate location when they're providing the feedback. And now I'm going to pass it on to Holly, where she's going to go through some recommendations about how to address privacy concerns with location-based studies.
Thanks, Miguel. Yeah, so all this might seem a little bit Big Brother-ish, maybe a little creepy, tracking somebody everywhere they go and you know, putting beacons throughout a store. And there are a good number of people who probably agree with that position. As a matter of fact, we can see that all across the world, people have some pretty significant concerns surrounding privacy. It really doesn't matter the country. Some are a little more concerned, some are a little less concerned. But the ultimate upshot is everybody's got a little bit of a fear, at least, of what kind of security and privacy there is and what can be exposed via their mobile phone. So with that, there's also some outcomes that are happening from that. You know, if people are worried about security in general on their mobile phone, many people are turning off their location tracking. And I actually saw that question come up in the QA as well. And yes, you're right. Many people do shut off their location tracking. It's true. About 35% of adults are shutting off their location tracking, and 1 in 5 are turning it off on apps. So now, if we look, though, at these exact same statistics and flip them on their head, you see something interesting. If we've got 1 in 5 who are turning off, we've also got 4% 4 out of 5 who are leaving it on. We've got quite a few people, 65% of adults are fine with not turning off their location tracking, and many of us, me included, just find it more convenient to leave it on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because it does ultimately make my life a lot easier, that I can just find what I want when I want it. So with that, it doesn't change the fact that there are still a chunk of people who are pretty nervous about the privacy thing. And regardless of whether or not they're falling into that 4 out of 5 or the 1 out of 5, you want to do the right thing by your panelists, right? And one way or the other, that involves developing trust, giving them the privacy that they need. Trust is a pretty big deal if you want people to actually participate in your market research. So just some high-level considerations, some things that are going to help to build that trust, that are going to help to keep people, downloading the app and turning on that location and involving themselves in your research, again, building up trust. The first thing you need to consider is that there are really big differences between the different locations. Regionalization is a monstrous thing. Not only do you have to think about local law, but you also have to think about cultural expectations. Just as a little example, generally around the world, we Americans are pretty lax, actually. You think we're all worried about it, but statistically we're not as worried about the whole security thing as the rest of the world is. In Europe, they kind of look at us and wonder if we're crazy or something. And the Europeans are much more concerned about their privacy and so on. So there's definitely some different things you have to do. You have to consider it from a regional perspective. And ultimately, I think a lot of these things kind of fall into the grand area of transparency. You need to first define what data you need and only take what you need, and be very transparent, very clear with your panelists, with the people. This is what I'm taking. This is what we're going to do with it, and we're going to do our very best to anonymize it. As a side personal note, I'm actually involved in a study now, one of the few I actually qualify for because of who I work for, where I have a market research agency actually tracking my mobile phone as we speak. And they were very transparent. They told me out of the gate, we're going to do our best, but yes, some things might slip through, but we'll do our very best. That's a pretty good deal. At least I know what they're taking and why. So the idea of defining what you're taking, being as transparent as possible, and doing your best to anonymize really does give people a sense of security and trust that you're going to do the right thing. At the same time, most people are pretty, they want something in return, just flat out. Ultimately, I'm getting $15 to let them follow me for 3 months by doing nothing but letting them track my cell phone. Tell us the benefits. Tell your panelists what is available to them. And it can be a range of things. Obviously, it's not always monetary. Sometimes it'll just be a matter of explaining to them why you're doing research. The fact that the panelists have the opportunity to change products or change the future, that's a pretty cool deal, actually. And, of course, what I think is probably the obvious and maybe isn't the obvious, but to me it is, opt-in and opt-out. You really should allow them an opportunity to opt in. Don't just track people randomly. But a double opt-in is even better. Let's say that they join your panel. Obviously, they're opting in for your panel, but you want to give them a secondary opt-in to the location triggering and the beacon, the location and beacon. You want to make sure that that's a separate opt-in from just the panel. So there's a double opt-in, so you're absolutely sure and they're absolutely sure what's going on. And of course, Miguel had actually pointed this out, and I thought it was a fabulous example. Opting in is kind of like checking into a hotel, but if you can't check out, that's not a happy thought. So you need to be able to allow them to opt out as well. If they're not comfortable, if they don't feel that you're doing right by them, let them opt out. And these are all things that ultimately contribute to building trust and will help to get more people downloading that app, participating in the panel, and ultimately not being afraid that you're going to take their data and sell it on the black market. So with that, Miguel, perhaps you can help to sum all this up for us?
Yes, thank you, Holly. I really I always recommend what you just suggested, the idea of being able to check in a hotel and also be able to check out, because the respondents and the panelists, they get very annoyed if they are not able to unsubscribe or opt out somehow. And you're right, in Europe, the regulations are getting very, very strict. So to summarize, we hope that we have given you some food for thought with this Big Brother presentation. Here is a summary of the main points that we wanted to convey through the presentation. The first key point is that mobile is now a vital ingredient in collecting feedback for market research programs. It will help you collect and get a deeper understanding of behavior, and in particular, if you're doing it by capturing in-the-moment feedback. If you're considering location-based studies, first, start by assessing the type of location or the precision in the location that you need. This will help you choose the right technology. There are two technologies that I have been talking about, which are Beacon, which is a Bluetooth-based technology, and the other one is GPS or a GPS technology. Your respondents' mobile phones implement both, but it's up to you to decide which one you want to use for your scenario, or if you want to use both, because maybe you know that some of them are going to turn off Bluetooth, but maybe they're not turning off GPS. It's up to you. When you're collecting feedback, make sure that you also always include a question where you're collecting the GPS information of the respondent. This is the information, the location of where they are, and ask them to take an image with their mobile phone so that you can see what they're seeing. The mobile will become the researcher. The mobile will be the eyes for you, and you will be able to see all those images when you're doing the analysis of all the information collected. And with regards to privacy concerns, make sure that you're addressing and defining a double opt-in and an opt-out process. An opt-in to your panel and an opt-in for the location-based studies. As well as an opt-in, there should be an opt-out. Remember, at a hotel where you can check in and you can check out. So location triggering technology can be used for studies with financial institutions, hotels, airports, hospitals, retail scenarios, even your competitor stores. If you want to do that combination of collecting information of a specific retailer and the competitor's retailer, this is ideal. And also from professional sport grounds. You will be able to get in-the-moment feedback to drive improved customer experience and a better service. And the value is that the data that you collect can be correlated to the purchase pattern and demographics, and you will be delivering better quality data because you can guarantee that the respondent is at the specific location when they're responding to your survey. Why? Because the survey has been triggered at that location and you have captured their location when they're answering. So if you're looking to differentiate from the competition, think about mobile triggered surveys because, as I always say, they're not a nice to have, they're a must have. Thank you very much. We are happy to answer questions, and now I'll send it back to Joe.
That sounds great. Thanks very much. We've had a handful of questions just about some of the practicalities of the beacon technology. So I don't know if you can just cover that a little bit, maybe for a typical store, how many beacons are required, and then also what kind of maintenance the beacons required. You know, do they run on batteries or electricity, or how does that work?
I didn't hear the first part of the question. The second part runs on batteries, and the first part was...
Oh, the first part was just about how many beacons does a typical retail store need? How many do you have to place? Does it depend on the size of the store and things like that?
Oh, okay. That's a very good question. And this is why I was suggesting to define the scenario. It really depends what you want to measure. If you're using beacons for a specific store and you want to trigger different surveys across a different store, you will be needing more beacons. The range of a beacon is approximately between 65 and 70 meters. So this can help you define the number of beacons and the locations of where you want to place them within the store. If you only want to collect information when a respondent goes to a specific part of the store, you only need 1 or maybe 2 beacons. And with regards to the battery, beacons make use of Bluetooth technology and Bluetooth 4 technology. It's a newer technology, and it makes use of less energy than standard Bluetooth. This means that they can run up to 2 years or using a battery. But there are beacons that can be placed on the store using connected to the mains. So if you need more information, what I would suggest is to contact Confirmit, your account manager, and then we can provide you with more detailed information. But they can run on batteries and on electricity. Normally, the normal use case is batteries because they can be placed and then you can run your study and you can reuse them at different locations.
Sure. This sort of follows along with that, but can you talk about the process to get retailers to allow you to place the beacons in the store? I mean, I'm assuming if you're doing it for McDonald's, McDonald's would allow you to do it, but what about the instance where you're trying to put them in a competitor store or something like that?
That's another good question. If you're running, I would also first ask about this scenario, because if you're looking, what you could do, for that, you could use the GPS-triggered surveys, because remember the Confirmit mobile panel app can be triggered using either beacons or GPS. So you're right; it could be a challenge to install beacons on the competitors' retail stores, but you can make use of the GPS locations of all the different stores. You only need to make sure that the panelist has been to the specific to your store, your customer's store, and the competitors, and it's very easy to find the locations of all the different stores, and that's when you trigger the survey.
Sure. Had a couple good questions here about how retailers and then also, I guess, research companies or researchers can encourage shoppers to download the required apps in order to do this type of research.
That's my recommendation for that. It is always a challenge to encourage downloading, and the recommendation would be to make the app your panel app. So if you don't have a panel app but you have a panel, then with the panel app you actually creating an extension of your panel, and the normal what I've normally seen is to include some kind of rewards. If you are completing a survey, which is a location-based trigger survey, you have a higher reward. You do some marketing campaigns where you are actually explaining what the location triggered studies is about, and you're very clear about privacy, and you elevating privacy and a strategic imperative. So you're not doing it for a legal and a compliance issue. You're doing it for your customers, for your panelists. If you're doing it for your panelists and you're explaining what Holly has, all the different areas that she recommended, if you're explaining the benefits to the panelists, the double opt-in and opt-out approach, then they will be willing to take part.
Sure. Good question here, too, about how are retailers educating their employees about beacons for promotional purposes such as couponing and things like that. I mean, what's the role of the retailer in terms of educating their employees about the use of beacons and how it might impact the consumer's experience?
Does it mean educating the employers?
I think maybe just telling the employees, like, oh, we've got beacons in the store, and there may be people who have, coupons that are triggered by being here, and I guess just maybe educating them so they know what's going on as opposed to being surprised or not knowing how to handle the situation if a customer has one.
Yeah, there needs to be a process to. That's also a very good question. There needs to be a process when you're deploying it and when you're doing it for a customer and for a retailer. And the customers that I have seen that are doing this type of study, they're actually deploying beacons themselves to trigger invites to customers that are actually entering into the store. So you can make use of the existing beacons that are on the store that the retailer is deploying, or you could provide all the information as before everything is deployed to the employees. So yeah, training is required. I would say yes. Normally, I've seen retailers that are making use of tablets, and as they're using tablets, because they actually become an extension. We're seeing also a trend of how the sales assistants are empowered with all these tablets in the stores. So I've seen that when they're doing all this training to make use of the tablets or mobile devices for payments using mobiles, then that's the time where beacons are also explained.
Had a couple questions about the respondents being able to submit a video, for example, or maybe use their voice to respond to an open-end question as opposed to typing in with their phone. Can you talk generally about some of the other multimedia capabilities that are available?
That's a very good question. With Confirmit, with the Confirmit web service, at the moment we're collecting. You're able to collect GPS and images, but we currently have on the roadmap, and it's going to be deployed soon, the ability to be able to collect video and audio. I've seen we have the capabilities of collecting audios with another app which is called Confirmit Soda, and we're completely offline. And the reason why I've seen people using audio is normally because it's easier to collect for the respondent to provide the feedback, but there's always a need to transcribe the audio. The typical scenario where I have seen the need for audio is normally the health industry, because doctors are used to talking to these small machines that they're carrying, and then they deliver the tape to the secretary, and they can transcribe it. So the health industry, I've seen that with Confirmit Soda, they're using audio in a big way. And I've seen the use of video when you want to complement feedback, and normally I've seen it being used for voice of the customer in voice of the customer environment. Because yes, as I mentioned earlier, if you've got a video, the video becomes the interviewer, and you've got the mobile becomes the interviewer, and you can actually record what's actually happening. Normally the videos tend to be very short and snappy, and you need some kind of online dashboard which Confirmit offers, and you can visualize all the videos in one go. Sure.
I had a question here about privacy. You touched on that, both of you did during the presentation. Are there do younger consumers, for example, have different views on mobile privacy, or are there specific segments, who are more open to doing these kinds of surveys, or do you have any comments along those lines?
Oh, sure, I can take that one. I was starting to feel unloved there for a minute.
You can hop in whenever you want to.
Sure. Miguel was doing such an amazing job, didn't want to jump into and interrupt. But I can definitely talk on this one. Sure, there are differences, absolutely. But actually, surprisingly, the differences aren't what you might expect. There was a study done recently, and I can't tell you I have the numbers right off the top of my head, but it was very surprising that actually millennials are a little bit more touchy about privacy than us Gen Xers. That was kind of surprising for me, and I guess it kind of leads to reason because you look at all the teenagers now. I've got a teenage daughter myself, and they've got all these anonymous apps like Snapchat and so on and so forth, and they seem to be feeling it quite a bit. So there most definitely are some differences in the different age groups, but to a certain extent, it boils back to what we were saying. I think both Miguel and I touched at it at some point, is it really boils down to the benefit. And, of course, making sure that not only are you exposing or explaining what the benefit is, but also making sure that the people who you are inviting to participate thoroughly understand what you're doing with their data, what you're doing with their information. So the combination of, again, both the benefit and what you're doing with their information most definitely helps. But yeah, you'll see some mild differences, but overall, I think the stronger differences that I've seen, at least number-wise, the various statistics out there, though again, we do see some differences in age groups. Some of the biggest differences you'll see will be culturally and nationally. So again, going back to all the points that we made before, that this has to be most definitely taking into consideration the different regions that you may be working in. If you're doing a multinational study, you absolutely have to, be taking all of the locations that are included in your panel or your study into consideration, as well as just understanding that I think, even though there are differences in the age groups, again, going back to that benefit and making sure that you are including a high degree of transparency as much as possible in what you're explaining to your panelists is definitely going to help to resolve some of those concerns.
Sure. And I would like to add that the teenagers and students, as you mentioned, were the first adopters of the anonymous apps simply because they care about controlling their personal care from their parents. And that's the main reason. And you as a mother would probably know.
It is true. It is true.
Had a couple questions too. Can you talk generally? I know we've focused a lot on the consumer side, marketing the consumers and the consumer-facing uses, but have you heard of or do you have any thoughts on using this technology or this approach for it in a business-to-business setting? Or have you heard anybody using it in a business-to-business setting?
We've seen. I've seen B2C scenarios currently being using this technology, and the one example that I could see on a business-to-business usage would be using it with your suppliers. If you want to collect feedback from your suppliers, that would be a B2B scenario, and that would be it's almost your suppliers are your customers. You're treating it almost like your customers, but then you can collect feedback from all your suppliers and use it to evaluate all your suppliers and then collect the feedback from the specific suppliers. So, for example, imagine that you are a cable company and you've got an N number of suppliers across the U.S. that are installing these TV boxes for satellite. You want to make sure that the respondents have been to the specific location, and then you could probably trigger the survey and collect the feedback from the suppliers, the installer of that TV box. And also you could send a survey later on, maybe via email, to the customer, and then compare. Use this to compare that the feedback from the customer and the supplier. That's the one scenario where I've seen a B2B scenario of using this type of technology, using GPS trigger survey. For beacons, the retail and banks and airports and hospitals are the biggest users of this type of technology.
And if I can just jump in there as well, one other thing that I've heard about beacons being used is at various events. B2B, a lot of B2B marketing is done through events, trade shows, and so on and so forth. So, and a lot of trade shows obviously have an app, and app equals the ability to connect to the location/beacon. So that's definitely something that could be done in a B2B context as well.
Sure. We are right up at the top of the hour. Holly or Miguel, did you want to add any closing comments?
I'm all good.
No, I'm all good. Thanks for listening to the presentation. It's been a pleasure to show beacon and location triggering. And as I mentioned, it's here, and it's no longer a nice to have. It's a must have.
Sure. Well, that is about all we have time for today. I want to thank Holly, Miguel, and Confirmit, and thanks to all of you for attending. We hope you found the information helpful, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.